Working on a new series here, and it's a 5-week series called Big Picture. Okay, we're gonna be talking about different ways where understanding what the bigger picture is of life, or understanding exactly maybe what it is you don't normally see, how it might impact the way that we do things on our daily basis if you know what's really going on. So, how many of you guys have ever heard the phrase bigger picture? I mean, have you ever thought about what exactly that means? Usually people say the phrase bigger picture when there's more to the story than we can actually see. And sometimes in our lives, it can be hard to see the bigger picture. Take social media as a perfect example. Maybe you follow a celebrity or an influencer or a YouTuber, maybe even somebody that's extremely popular in your class or something like that. And every single thing that they tend to post on social media makes it look like their lives are completely put together. They've always got the perfect hair, the perfect clothing. They seem to be doing really well for themselves, whether it's making great money or they've just got the newest iPhone or something like that. And it kind of makes you somewhat envious of who they are because of what they put on social media. And let's be honest, people tend to put their best self forward in the public eye because it's a lot easier to do that, to sell exactly what it is that you want to sell. Nobody likes to buy things from someone, like myself. That said, take a look at this picture of Jason Momoa. One of my favorite actors. He's actually plays Aquaman in Justice League and the Aquaman movie. Those of you that are not big DC fans, this is my way of saying I don't really care. I love DC, and you don't get to say anything because I'm the one teaching the class. So, that said, you look at the size of this guy, you look at the clothes that he's wearing, he seems to have very a modern feel, but he is very much down to his roots and exactly who he is. He's got that hairstyle, the beard, and he's just a big guy, very, very much about who he is. He just is always himself, and I think that's a really cool character trait to have. Now, if you take a look at this picture, you may not see the entire thing, okay? If you saw what was really going on, maybe to the side of him, you'd realize just how far from perfect things really are. So take a look at this. Okay, maybe it's not showing that his life is miserable. I mean, the guy still has 2 bodyguards, right? These are his 2 bodyguards that are here. But if you're practical like me, you're looking at this going, all right, I'm paying 2 guys that are a head height shorter than me to protect me from other people. To me, I don't see the practicality in paying somebody to protect me when I'm, twice their size. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But, hey, Jason Momoa's got money, so he's going to do what he's going to do. When it comes to so many things in our lives, we have a tendency to focus on only one small part of what's happening. We don't always pay attention to what's going on behind the scenes. We tend to look at just one circumstance or one event or one detail and think about the way it's impacting us right now. But when we do that, we miss out on everything else that's happening around us. There's so much more we may not see yet. We're missing the bigger picture. Now, I think this happens in a lot of areas in our lives. But the one we're going to talk about today is our families. I know all of our families may be different from each other, but I think no matter what, we all can agree on this. When it comes to our families, we tend to think we're the main character in the story. Whether we realize it or not, I think a lot of us expect that. At least in our families, the world should revolve around us. While we might not do it intentionally, our actions say, hey, I'm the one who should be getting all the attention. I should be the center of the universe. Think about it. We'd rather have everyone else get on our schedule of staying up late and sleeping in. We'd love it if family meals could have only the things we like to eat, meaning fewer vegetables, probably something more like more Cheetos, more, pizza. Not for me, gives me heartburn. We don't think twice when asking our parents to spend money on things like Fortnite, maybe some new shoes, concert tickets, and maybe not today, right? Because you really can't go to concerts. They're not having concerts right now. But you get the idea. Basically, without even realizing it, our actions say to our families that we want them to focus first on how we feel, what we need, and what they can do to make life look the way we want it to look. Now, maybe in your family things are a little different. maybe all the attention actually is focused on you. Congratulations. Your parents are all up in your business. They want to know every detail of your life. Your grades are the most important, your activities are the biggest deal, and your feelings are the top priority of conversation. It's all about what you're doing and how you're feeling and what you're thinking. And honestly, it can be too much. I think a lot of us feel that way, and if your parents are being honest, they feel the same. They tell you the same thing. Some days, we don't really want to talk about it. Your family is driving you crazy with all the questions and conversations and attention, and they're nagging you, at least it feels like they're nagging you, or they're constantly wanting to find out what is going on in your life. That does sound like a lot, but can I just point out one thing? In this case, you too are looking at what's happening in your family in a way that's all about you. You're noticing only how all the attention is impacting you. You're not necessarily thinking about your parents' intentions and the fact that they may just want to make sure that you're being safe because the world is so insane these days. You got to keep in mind that when we or your parents were your guys' age, we were allowed to basically just go out and do almost anything. The world is very different now than it was. So you've got to try to keep that in mind. They just want to make sure that you're safe under most circumstances, okay? Because the world is not as clean and wonderful as the movies may sometimes, tell you that it is. You see, whether we're the center of attention or we want all the attention in our families, we're not seeing the bigger picture. We're not seeing that there may be a lot more happening in our homes, things we don't know about or understand yet. That's causing our parents or siblings to treat us the way they do. Or we're not seeing the bigger picture to our own actions. That the way we view ourselves and treat our families has an impact on them too. And here's the deal. Missing that bigger picture can cause a lot of frustration and hurt within our families. These type of tricky family dynamics have been around for as long as there have been families. In fact, some of the craziest stories in the Bible are about this very topic. And trust me, these family stories are a lot crazier than any of us can even imagine. Today we're going to look at one guy in the Bible who found himself in the middle of a pretty crazy family situation. His name is Joseph. Those of you that know his story realize his family really kind of didn't like him all that much, except his dad. He was actually a really big deal in the Old Testament, a collection of books in the Bible written before Jesus ever came to earth. Joseph was one of the youngest sons of a man named Jacob. And Joseph had a lot of older brothers, like 10 older brothers. Really, he had 10 older brothers. So we're talking like it's a pretty big family. Now, Joseph's family probably looked quite a bit differently than the family that we see here, but one thing that's true about all families, both back then and now, is that the relationships in them can be tricky. So that being said, let's take a look at what made some of the relationships in Joseph's family so tricky. In Genesis 37, verses 3 through 4, Genesis 37, 3 through 4, it says this: Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his other children because Joseph had been born to him in his old age. So one day, Jacob had a special gift made for Joseph, a beautiful robe, but his brothers hated Joseph because their father loved him more than the rest of them. They couldn't say a kind word to him. So, basically, Jacob loved Joseph more than all of his other children, and he did nothing to hide it. Jacob could have just literally said, "Hey, other sons, I just want you to know that Joseph over here is the best. He's my favorite." Hello, my name is Joseph, Jacob's favorite. And it would kind of just explain itself. That's basically what's going on here. I don't know about you, but if there were one of Joseph's brothers, if I were one of Joseph's brothers, I'd be super jealous. I don't know if throwing him in a pit would have been enough, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. It's like Jacob had given Joseph the nicest, most expensive headphones that money could buy, and the brothers got nothing. Can you see how this might create some tension in their family? Well, what happened next made matters even worse. We're going to take a look here. In Genesis 37, now we're moving on to verses 5 through 7, it says, "One night Joseph had a dream, and when he told his brothers about it, they hated him more than ever." Listen to his dream. He says, "Listen to my dream. We were out in the field tying up bundles of grain. Suddenly my bundle stood up, and your bundles all gathered around and bowed low before mine." Okay. If this sounds a little weird to you, it's because it kind of is. Basically, Joseph had a dream where he and his brothers were working in a field together. Suddenly, the bundles of grain that Joseph had been tying up stood above the others. And the bundles of grain that his brothers were tying did what in response? They bowed down to Joseph's bundle of grain. It was a symbol implying that one day, Joseph's brothers would bow down to him. Now, yes, a dream about grain, maybe it's maybe for you it's something like my iPhone, I was texting somebody in my dream, and while I was texting them, my iPhone jumped out of my hands and it stood up straight on the table, and all of your iPhones came over and bowed down low to it, and there's your application. I don't know if it's the same thing, but it kind of came to me while I was doing this video, so I thought I'd share it with you. Kind of like it does in class. You guys starting to understand how this is going to work? Now, here's the thing. If one of our siblings came to us with a crazy dream, we'll probably just roll our eyes and move on. It's just a dream after all. But in this culture, dreams were a much bigger deal. They were actually believed to be predictions of the future. And in a lot of cases, they actually were a prediction of the future. So when Joseph shared his dream about his brothers actually bowing down to him, they believed it was really going to happen. And as the passage tells us, hearing that made Joseph's brothers hate him all the more. What's worse, in the next few verses, Joseph went on to share another dream he had, this time where the stars and moon and sun bowed down to worship him. As you can probably guess, his brothers got even more irritated after hearing about his second dream. I mean, okay, so what about the iPhones? But now you're telling me that the entire universe is bowing down to you? Come on. But what did dreams and all this family drama have to do with us? I think what we can learn from this story is this. When we can't see the bigger picture, we should remember the impact we have on our families. Yeah, I get that. That might seem a little bit foreign to some of us. When we can't see the bigger picture, when we maybe don't fully understand what's going on, we should always remember the impact that we actually have on our families. You do not realize the impact that you have on your families, whether it's you just being yourself or you just being frustrated today. Who we are matters, and God designed us to be a specific way, but who you are also impacts your family, okay? Positive or negative. Just keep that in mind. Now, Scripture doesn't tell us that everyone in Joseph's family was thinking or feeling, but we can guess a lot based on their actions. It seems like everyone, Joseph, his brothers, even his dad, didn't notice how their actions affected each other. You could say they were missing some major self-awareness, and they definitely didn't see the bigger picture. All that combined caused a lot of conflict. Think about it. Jacob loved his son Joseph so much he treated him differently, better than the rest of his brothers. Jacob didn't see the bigger picture. That was causing a lot of tension and conflict between the sons. And Joseph's brothers, well, they weren't aware of the way their strong and harsh responses to Joseph impacted him, even though they were reacting to the hurt caused by their dad's favoritism of Joseph. You need to understand this. The brothers were actually acting out because they were hurt. Pain. When we feel pain, we tend to act in ways that maybe we wouldn't normally act. And so sometimes we need to put ourselves in a position where we can maybe look at the way somebody's reacting to what we're doing, and we look at what's happening and we say, there's got to be a reason for this. There has to be a reason they're acting this way. And the brothers made some mistakes because they were hurt, because dad said, I love you less than your brother Joseph. And that can be a scary thought, because if you love me less than you love him, where is my value? How do I matter? You got to even think about the next piece of this entire puzzle. Even Joseph struggled in the self-awareness department too. He knew his brothers were jealous of the way their father loved him and favored him. But still Joseph came to them with not just one, but 2 dreams about how great he would be one day, and they would bow down to him. What? Talk about an idiot. Everybody in this story was missing the bigger picture. They weren't paying attention to how they were negatively affecting their other family members. And honestly, I think that's true for a lot of the family tension and stress we experience. Typically, nobody's trying to be self-centered. We're simply trying to make sure that our needs are getting met. And in a lot of families, in a lot of cases, people's needs aren't being met. Okay? The truth is, I see a lot of this lesson in my life story. I share a lot with you guys because you guys have to understand that just because somebody grows up in church, just because somebody is a church leader today, doesn't mean that their life has been perfect or that everything's been great. The bigger picture, you don't see it all. You don't realize that things kind of can suck, and they just do. You have to find a way to get through it. Because when you only think about yourself, you miss the bigger picture. We miss the way our actions are impacting others. Okay? Now, maybe you feel like everyone else in your family isn't paying attention to how their actions are impacting you. Maybe your mom lied about something, or your dad left, or one of your siblings has hurt you repeatedly without consequence. To you, I'd say this: there's more to those stories too. The people who hurt you or your family, they usually do that because somebody hurt them. They're reacting out of their own pain. Does that make what they did okay? Absolutely not. And I really encourage you to talk to someone you trust if you're being mistreated or harmed in some way. Because I've told you guys hundreds of times probably at this point in our relationship together that if you ever need something, you have the ability to get a hold of me. You just need to ask. I'm always available for you guys. If you don't feel safe talking to me, make sure you find a trusted adult that you can talk to. Feelings matter, and you have to be willing to talk about them in order to get through them. Here's the point. When you can't see the bigger picture, remember the impact you have on your family. So many of us are hyper aware of the way our family affects us, but we're very rarely aware of how we affect them. This lesson really touched my heart when I was reading through it, because so often as a parent, we tend to take this perspective that, the kids have to respect us and they have to do what we say. And while I tend to believe that in a lot of cases, I also believe that as a parent, it's my job to show them who God is. And if I'm not taking care of my children the way that God should be, that I expect God to take care of me, then how are they supposed to respect me? Because I'm nowhere near the example of who God has, who God wants me to be. That's the way that I see it. And so I'm constantly working to be better than I was yesterday and better tomorrow than I am today. That's really what this is all coming down to. So instead of letting this be the story of our own families, we can flip the way we see what's happening. We can work on becoming more aware of how our words, actions, and behaviors impact our families. Yes, you, at your age, as a teenager, as a young adult, as a youth member, you can actually change the entire dynamic in your family by realizing that your actions, your words actually can affect your family in a lot of different ways. When you can't see the bigger picture, the least you can do is remember the impact that you have on your family. So what does this actually look like? how do we start seeing the bigger picture when it comes to how our actions impact our families? First of all, be aware. I think we have to work on developing an accurate view of ourselves. We have to be aware of how our actions impact others. You got to start by asking yourself some questions. How is the way I'm acting affecting my family? How can I put my family first? What do I need to give up or put aside to serve my family? How can I show love to my family? Or what can I do to put my family's needs before my own? Pay attention to how our actions affect others is hard. It's not always easy for us to see the way that we're impacting other people. If you aren't sure, ask someone close for their honest help. You can ask me, you can ask a parent, a sibling. Make sure it's not a sibling who happens to be upset at you at the moment, because they may give you some answer you're not going to really like to hear, and they might give it to you in a way that impacts you negatively. But realize that they're not looking at the bigger picture too, okay? Go to someone who knows you well and will speak the truth to you in love. Ask them to help you see something in yourself that maybe you can't see on your own. And I will tell you very, very honestly, this is like having to get the flu shot. Okay, there's very few things in my life that I'm deathly afraid of, and needles is one of them. But you know something about the flu shot? I will get it every single year. Why? Because I understand the benefit. Realizing that we have failures is part of growing up, and understanding that there are things that we struggle with, or that we have weaknesses in some areas that we might need to tweak so we fit more into the model of who God's designed us to be, or who He wants us to be, because we do stray from that regularly. We might need to hear the honesty from somebody. And I will tell you the truth. I hurt every time someone's honest with me about failures that I have or struggles that I'm dealing with. But I also realize that if I'm honest with myself, they might be more right than I'm really willing and prepared to admit. Second thing you can do is take a step. Take one step to change that thing in yourself, or to be more aware of the way it impacts others. Then choose a different response. You don't have to change your opinions. You don't have to change the way that God made you. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's different ways to say things. You know, like maybe you don't call your brother or sister stupid. Maybe you just say, you might understand when you're older. Some of them might actually understand what you're saying, and it may still come off poorly. But the reality is there are nicer ways to say things, and you still get the same point across. The reality is you have to realize that if you're the older sibling in the family, and there's siblings that are younger than you have different experiences than they do. And they're going to have different experiences than you do growing up. That's just how it is. So their opinions, their impacts on the world are going to be so different. Because not only are their personalities different, but your parents are in a different place than they were when they first had their first kid. You're in a different place than you were when you were first born. Thank God, none of us are in diapers anymore. Whatever it is that you need to do to be better, pause and think about how you're affecting others. Look at how you're impacting the bigger picture and make a move to change it for the better. The main thing, and I'm sure you've heard it multiple times during this video, when you can't see the bigger picture, remember the impact you have on your family. Because we can change the world one family at a time, but we have to realize that we have a bigger impact than we think we do. I want you guys to ponder this last question before I wrap this thing up. It's the last thing I need to say to you. What's one way I might be causing conflict or tension in my family? what's one way I might be causing conflict or tension in my family. Be honest with yourself. Start understanding you and who God made you to be. Let's try to reach out and be better people tomorrow than we are today. That's all I got for you guys.